Hello, this is the Blast Report podcast on all things blasting. My name is Evan Thibaud with New Wave Consulting, and I want to thank all the drill and blast teams along with those supporting them who are out there on the pattern. The production team at Blast Think and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the Blast Report podcast. This episode of the Blast Report podcast is brought to you by WipWare. Since 1986, WipWare Photoanalysis Systems has provided solutions for fragmentation optimization. WipWare is a global company with influence in any industry where fragmentation is key to success. They not only measure and monitor materials, they create actionable data. Your mine-to-mill process can be optimized with their available hardware or software options. Whether you use drones for blast photos or you install one of their industry-leading real-time cameras along the haulage process, WipWare creates solid analysis to confirm your blast design is the most effective it can be. This small business has a big impact because you can't manage what you can't measure. Welcome to the Blast Report podcast, Mr. Larry Beans. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for agreeing to come on our show. It's you've been recommended to us, and I think you've been. I don't remember exactly who put your name on our list, but when we put out a survey, we said, "Who should we get on here?" And they were like, "Well, I think Larry's got a good story or two."
Yeah, that's probably true. I've been at it since 1970.
Woo, 1970, wonderful. So, Larry, let's give our listeners a little bit of the pretext here. Is you got your start at Atlas many years ago, and then worked your way to a position where you became the owner of Maurer Scott. Am I saying that properly?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And so, was there usually how we start these podcast episodes is kind of talk about a little bit how you got your start. What got you into the explosives industry at the very beginning, and how did you even hear about it? Was it right out of school, or how did you hear about Atlas?
Well, it's interesting. I got out of the military and was fortunate enough not to go to Vietnam, but I got out of the military and by degree I'm a teacher, and I didn't want to teach, so I got personnel people to help me interview different corporations to have jobs in roughly the Philadelphia area, and they kept sending me to chemical companies. I had a lot of job offers from chemical companies, but I didn't see myself as a chemical salesman. But my last one, my wife said, we have to get a job pretty soon. So I said, I have one more interview. It was Atlas Chemical Industries. And once again, I thought I'd be selling chemicals. And when I got there, the man who interviewed me said, "Do you know anything about explosives?" And I says, well, a little bit military, a little bit when I was in college, I worked at a stone quarry and I helped the blaster carry the product to the hole, but I don't know anything about it. And he was a World War II guy, and I think he sort of liked that I still had a military bearing about me instead of long hair and loafers and stuff like that. So yeah, he said, "That's great. We have enough experts." He said, I'd like for you to offer you a position. He did. I took it. And I'm telling you, it was the best thing I ever did in my life. If you can tell somebody that they're going to work at something that they're going to love their whole life, then I was lucky enough to do that.
Wow.
Not to say there weren't some bad days, but
of course.
Yeah, but for the most part, it was unbelievable right from the first day.
And who was it that hired you on, or who was it that you met? It
was a guy named George Thompson. He was not there very much longer after. He was a World War II guy. He left, and then I reported to a guy named Lee Sparks, and he was an Atlas area manager, my area. And then he became a regional manager. When he became a regional manager 2 years after I went there, then he promoted me to an area manager. And manufacturers had that kind of training. They had, I skipped a beat there. They put you through a training school for about 9 months before they'd give you a territory. Mm-hmm. So Lee Sparks then hired me for his territory, which included Allentown, which is where I went. And Lee and I I worked for Lee. He got promoted to regional manager, then I got promoted to area manager. So I had 7 salesmen, basically in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New England.
And was that 9 months
training, that's immediately when you knew that this was exactly the job you wanted to be in, the industry you
Yes.
wanted to be in, or was it day one, or what was that situation?
Day one. It's the first day I went out with a salesman who almost everybody was a salesman, and a salesman was a blaster. And I went out with a salesman who did more selling than blasting. He was older, but introduced me around to all the people. And then the second day I started loading explosives, and I never forget it. It was over in New Jersey and it was great. And then they sent me to to Florida, to underwater shooting, up to the mines in Maine, underground, and everything in between, coal mines and quarries and everything else. It was great training. Everybody did it. I don't think the manufacturers do that anymore. I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. And when you went down to Miami, was it in those quarries, those limestone quarries that they use the drag lines and
Yep.
shoot right there, right off to the west of the city?
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting type of blasting, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I also went in Hartfield out of Atlanta. When they enlarged that airport, I was there for almost 6 months shooting. The planes would come in, and then you could shoot after they landed, and then they took off. It was a timing type of thing. It was pretty cool. That was another project that I had a lot of interest in. Timing had to be right, and everything. It was pretty cool.
That's Hartford, Connecticut, the airport
No,
there?
Hartfeld, I think it is, isn't it?
Oh,
Atlanta's here. I think.
Wow, yeah, Hartfeld, yes, yeah.
I might have said it wrong. It's the Atlanta airport. So,
Oh my gosh, so you got to do the blasting for the Atlanta airport? I just flew in there last night.
yeah, well, this is going back a lot of years. This is when they enlarged the thing. Then we were in Paducah shooting underground mines, and the training was just very, very intense and great. And of course, in the Philadelphia area where I was living at the time, they had a lot of quarries around there where I could stay home every other week or so and do blasting around there.
Yeah, I worked for a powder company myself for quite some time, and I think one of the wonderful aspects of working for a big powder company like that is that you get to see so many aspects of blasting.
Yes.
You get to see their product in all these different types of fields and different types of rock and application, and you think you understand the stemming material, or you think you understand this rock, and then you go to some other state or just over the county line, and someone's doing something totally different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And it makes things so interesting, and it never the same day. I feel like that would be a downside of, let's say, working at the same quarry all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The variables are changing almost too fast, but at least it's interesting every single day. So you stayed in that role for a little bit. Was there like certain mentors that you kind of had from the Atlas days? I mean, a lot of people talk about Atlas, and there's still guys around who are working for Atlas, and a lot of people from this podcast. So are there some kind of people that you remember who really took you under your wing and taught you some good lessons?
Yeah, but most of them are dead.
Yeah.
So, after being in the business 55 years, you pass a lot of people.
That's right.
No, Lee Sparks was a great example for me to how to sell. He wasn't a great blaster, but he could sell well. He taught you how to sell, how to talk, how to carry yourself. Most of it common sense, a lot of it just the tricks of the trade type of stuff.
Any ones that you remember off the top of your head that you can bestow upon me?
Well, the one thing he said, never get mad at the customer. He said there's going to be a lot of times where it's going to be like you're fed up with it, but you can't ever get mad at the customer. And the other thing he always told me, which I thought was kind of interesting, he said, don't ask for all the business. He said, because if you give somebody a question that says only two ways he can answer it, then you're in trouble. So those kind of things I sort of learned along the way. Other than that, we got along with 7 guys in our area that were great, and we all helped each other out. And it was very fortunate for me that when Lee got promoted, that he promoted me as the area manager, because now I had 6 other areas where I could go into and sell and see more customers, be exposed to more customers, get my name in front of people and help grow the business. When what we would do is the blaster would go out, the salesman would go out, he'd sell an account, and he'd turn it over to the distributor. And the distributor, when I first started there, was Maurer Scott. That's who I turned the business over to. But when I went to the different areas, like in New Jersey, there was Ray McCormick. When you went up to the coal fields in Pennsylvania, there was Sherry Lee. And went out to Harrisburg area, it was M&J. So you had, I don't know if M&J was there then, come to think of it. But anyway, I got great exposure in that. Then after, it was kind of interesting, if you want me to continue on how I went from there, the Lee Sparks, who was, as I said, was a regional manager. He said, you could be up for regional manager. And the reason for that was most of the people who were blasters were older. I was in my 20s, maybe 30. Everybody else was in their upper 50s and 60s. They didn't want to be managers any more than, anything. So he said, if Walter Law, who was down in Knoxville, he said, he's thinking of retiring. If he retires, you go to Knoxville. If Bob Brandt retires, he's in Missouri. I said, I'm not going to Missouri.
Oh, come on. You don't like Missouri now? That's where I went to school.
I think I would have loved it, but I really like Knoxville. And so Walter Law at Knoxville said, no, I'm not retiring anytime soon. Bob Brandt said he was going to retire. Lee said to me, if you don't take the promotion, they'll never ask you again. That's the way big companies were back then. So then I thought what I should do was go to this guy who owned Maurer Scott and tell him that I might be looking for a job. He was interesting because most of the book of business he had, I sold for him. I'd say half of it. So what I did was I asked him, I wanted to buy into the company, but I didn't have any money. And he sort of laughed and he said, well, how are you going to buy into a company if you don't have any money? And I says, well, half your book of business I control. Somebody's going to love me if you don't. And he loved me. And I went to work for him with an agreement that could buy out over a period of time. And I'd have certain rewards and bonuses and stuff like that. It was a great relationship. And once again, he was a great mentor to me. He was a graduate of Colorado School of Mines. He was a cantankerous, very specific, very exact type of person. And I learned a lot from him. So, Lee Sparks.
And what was his name? His
name was Sam Hochberger.
Sam Hochberger.
Yes, he was a Jewish guy from New York City. He went to school in the Colorado School of Mines. And during World War II, those people who were graduated their sophomore year were made captains, and they were sent over to Germany to demolish buildings and stuff like that. Then when he got done with that, they sent him back to pay for his last 2 years of college. And he taught me a lot, an awful lot. So between Sam and Lee Sparks, that's where I learned an awful lot.
And what was something that Sam kind of engraved in you, and was any things that you can remember off the top of your head, or any stories specifically that you had with him? Any good memories or something like that?
Well, like I said, he was a very specific, exact kind of person. I mean, there was no room. Like he would. I was loading a shot in the east side of Philadelphia, and I started there about 4:30 in the morning. It was snowing and raining. It was like 10 degrees out. It was horrible. We had all kinds of trouble. Got down at 2 o'clock. On my way home, he said, I want you to go down near the airport and pick up a car. He says, pick up your new car. And I said, Sam, I've been working for 12 hours now. I got to get home. He says, go get the car or get your own car. and that's sort of what he was like. And you learned then that what he said, you did. And everybody that worked for him, when he said something, you were going to do it. I learned discipline from him. I learned, how to handle men, real men who worked all the time. And any one of us guys would have laid down in front of his car to help him out. He is a great guy. And he taught me a lot in that aspect. Taught me a lot about the business too. Some things I didn't like,
Any good examples of some things you didn't like?
If a salesman came in and offered us a price on a product, Sam would look at him, say no, ask the guy to leave. I'd say, well, he expected you to ask for a better price. And he said, I don't ask anybody for a better price. If they can't come in for their best price, he said, I don't want to do business. Well, I guess that was a good way. I wasn't the way I would really did it, but that's the way he thought about things.
I guess if you're a salesman and someone gave you a tip in advance, that's what you got to come in at.
Yeah.
But if you try that the first time, the next thing you know, that someone else is going to try to have you down, and you just keep saying, well, that's literally the best price I got,
Yeah. So he taught me a lot about that. He taught me a lot about, dealing with people, and he was just so smart that also I needed a lot of schooling. I learned a lot from Atlas, but he was, really a very bright guy, which I admired a lot.
Did your teaching background come into effect and was a benefit for you in your ability to communicate or teach adults how to do something? Having that teaching background, was there a benefit there later on?
Absolutely not.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say absolutely.
No, there was nothing that I learned in college that prepared me for that. The
Nothing.
military did. The military. But listen, I went to college. I'm not unlike most guys. I wasn't very mature. I went there for all kinds of reasons other than getting a degree, and got away with it. I'm not proud of it, but that's what we did then. But when you're in the military, it's a whole different story. The military prepared me for how to work hard, how to be listened to orders, do what you're told, and get ready to go to Vietnam, which I did not, and I was proud of all the guys.
Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah.
My father was on the PT boats in the Mekong, and he's still dealing with that to this day. So
Sure.
that was a hell of a nightmare. So it was a good thing that that didn't end up happening for you. That's
Yes. I'm very grateful to people who did it. I went to OCS down in Fort Benning, Georgia. We graduated 200 guys, and 189 went to Vietnam. I did not.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was very lucky.
Literally dodging a bullet. I mean,
Yes.
literally dodging
yeah.
a bullet there. Yeah.
Second lieutenants had a tough time then.
So did you, when you came, so if your college didn't really help you, but the military did, on the discipline side and things like that, what was something that you felt, that, you kind of said that some of your mentors, Sam, taught you a few things. Was there something that now that you really wished you would have known back then?
Oh, sure. I think we all have that. Even
Yeah,
you.
but of course. I mean, we all do. But is there one that you could kind of really, any specific one that you could get like, damn, if only I had known that one, something would change?
I can't think of anything right now that would do that to me. But I would say to you that the time that I went into the blasting business in 1970, until probably, up to today, but then everything started to change. And right in that time when I went on, call it luck, call it whatever you want to call it, but things were changing. When I first started loading explosive, we were using NG-based products, 5x25, 23G cartridges, putting it down the hole. You had nothing to put in 300 pounds of NG product in a hole. Our caps were not as sophisticated as they could be. Atlas had a good run of caps, but the caps detonators became much better. And nitroglycerin lost its glow, and people turned to ammonium nitrate. Texas City disaster was a precursor of that, but it was a long time before the manufacturers finally coughed up and said, we need to provide us cheaper product. You were selling the powder primer from Atlas Powder Company and NG products for $75 a 100, and you can buy AN for $1.50. I mean, it revolutionized the whole industry. Better blasting caps, better timing, sequential timers. When I first started out, I probably half my shots I used the rack bar, the old John Wayne rack bar. That's how I shot them all. And boosters became more reliable, became better. You had more mechanization of AN in the holes. We all loaded 50-pound bags and 30-pound sticks. That's what you did. Well, you couldn't load the big shots. It'd take you forever. Getting the product there. Once we got in the big bulk trucks and invested the money in that kind of thing, we could shoot a lot more shots and bigger shots and that kind of thing. So I don't think there was anything that anybody could possibly think I should have known or should have done. It just kept changing so fast. And then the people started to change, more recent than not, where in the old days you could just eat them up. Just you could hire a guy for $8 an hour and work them all you wanted. I mean, just including myself, and I got my first job at Atlas, I made $700 a month, $8,400 a year. I mean, I could have stayed in the military and made more than that. So, it changed so much. And even today we have a great, whereas you're disciplined for your employees, as much respect as you could give them, you're disciplined. Today, the employees sort of set the tone for you. It wasn't, the baseball manager said, I don't remember which one it was. He said, when I first started coaching baseball, the players did everything that I wanted them to do. Now when I coach baseball, I do everything the players want me to do. And that's sort of what we've gone through now in this explosive industry. You need good people, well, you better treat them right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it. As we should everybody, but that whole system has changed.
Jerry Wallace, that was his parting words, was make sure that you're paying your blasters and you're treating them right. There's so much responsibility and work that they put in that they have, we've got to keep them going so that there's not as much turnover, and just can't find people who really want to get blisters and wake up these hours and work in those elements anymore. Everyone wants to be behind a computer or do something else. So it's a
Yeah, no, you're
special
right.
breed of person. It's a special breed of person who wants to be in this industry, and that's kind of why we have this podcast. Is we know that all the people in this industry are a unique character and probably a bit masochistic because they like the pain of all the struggles of blasting and the headaches that you get from all the different types of rock and things like that. So
Sure.
what was it that it for yourself that made you want to buy out Maurer and Scott? Was there an initial, was it just because you were afraid that you weren't going to get the promotion on the other end and those guys weren't going to retire and you said, I need to, one, move on, or two, I just want to start making more money? What was the root cause of that type of switch for you?
I think it was I wanted to stay in this location. I wanted to be with my family. I knew if I went out to Missouri, it'd be a whole different, there'd be a lot of travel. And the guy that ran Missouri lived in Chicago. I mean, it was a big area. The guy that lived in Knoxville was probably home 3 nights a week. I mean, that kind of thing. I wanted to be with my family. I knew the area. I'd like to be in the area. Plus, I thought I had a lot of value of the industry and the business that I was in that area. I felt I could succeed. It really was never about the money. I hate it when people say that, but it really wasn't. It was trying to be solidified in an area that I knew, a place where I had sort of grown up. I was from State College, Pennsylvania, but I considered Philadelphia area when I went to college down that area. But I wanted to stay in an area where I was accustomed to. It certainly wasn't Missouri. So I guess that was sort of like what my reasoning was to do that. I also, the guys who work for the distributorship, because I turned over a lot of business to them, we worked together, we shot together, and they're all great guys. I've been in the business 55 years. I have a guy I hired from Maurer Scott who works for me today. He's been in it 53 years. And I have another guy who I hired from Maurer Scott who's been in the business for 52 years.
That's amazing.
The three of us have over 150 some years in the business. They still work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. And it just,
that's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really pretty neat.
And so did you, when you decided to switch over from the supplier to more of a distributor business, was it, you had kind of been in that realm through Atlas being a provider of all those distributors, but was there a shift, a mental shift, or something that you had to really take into context now focusing more on the user, the end user side?
Well, not so much the end user side, but I became now a pawn for the manufacturer who I'd worked for. Maurer Scott was one of the first distributors who really turned away from their existing manufacturer. When I used to go back to the manufacturer, the Trojan Powder Company was in the Allentown area. I knew the general manager very well through different events in the local community, and they gave you a price, and if you didn't like it, that was too bad. Well, I figured out that if I didn't like it, there was someone else who would sell me. Trojan Powder bought all their caps from Atlas, and they sold their to my customers cheaper than I could. They had a great booster, and we started buying from Trojan Powder Company. They provided us trucking. So to answer your question, it was not so much that I looked back or forward how it was. I just found out that I shouldn't have to pay these prices, or I wasn't comfortable with that, or I wasn't satisfied with it.
You weren't locked in.
Yeah, and everybody felt locked in. But I was fortunate enough. George Klein was the manager for Trojan Powder, and he had the same kind of situation. He had older blasters, older salesmen who, they needed someone to make it go, and I could do it, and we did it. And so then we went from Trojan, they got bought and sold, and then I went to Thermex, and then Independent Powder decided they could deliver us. and we started to be a multi-user of many products.
And you have any unique stories there on that subject? Obviously, you know, when you start combining different products, that doesn't always end up in the in a good situation. Do you have any memories of any events there where you had struggles or benefits of being able to switch between those?
Well, I think, yeah, you asked a three-way question there, which of course there's advantages and stuff like that. I think the majority of what we did was, and that's part of that transformation that I was talking about a little earlier about, you know, different caps, using ANFO. We also had the situation where the customer changed. His ability, when I first started selling explosives in the early 70s, you go into a cantankerous, hard tobacco chewing guy who kicked the stones and said, go over and move that shot and be done by 4 o'clock or whatever. And you satisfied that guy. That guy was the guy. And then you go to the next quarry, same thing. Well, that started to change because what happened was, take Vulcan, Marietta, and it wasn't unique up in Pennsylvania either. They'd have a good customer of mine. I shot his quarry 2 or 3 times a week. He said, I'm going to buy some more quarries. He said, I'm going to let you shoot them all as long as you never leave a pound of explosive in the muck pile. You can shoot every quarry that I buy. He bought 12 quarries. So instead of me having 12 people I called on, guess what? I called on one guy. And that changed the whole complexity. It changed the whole, the complex of how you did business. And today, it's even worse because now you don't have that guy kicking the rock telling you to get out there and load the shot. I don't have a customer telling me he owns so many quarries. You have a purchasing agent. We deal with purchasing agents that are in Dallas. We deal with purchasing agents that are in Canada. I mean, now you've got a whole different way of selling, a whole different way of trying to work through this system. So did I learn a lot going through this? Yeah, but just about the time I thought I knew everything, it changed.
Start over.
Yep, start over. And today, I mean, it's a real competitive situation. But when I started in this business in 1970, I had 15 suppliers, potential type suppliers. You know how many I have now? Maybe
three or four.
You know, it's just, you know, if you have 3 or 4 competitors who need the business as bad as you do, and you're quoting on some guy that has 20 quarries. Good luck with that if you lose it. Yeah. Good luck if you get it. I mean, it's a whole different type of ball game now. I worked years to not be in the drilling business. Did everything I could not to be in the drilling business. 5-6 years ago, I thought I ain't never going to make it if we don't get drills.
Really?
Bought a small drilling company that had like 4 drills that were all put together by rubber bands and chewing gum. And the guy was going out of business. Got our toe in the water. Did it for a year or 2. Then I bought one of the bigger drilling companies to Eastern Pennsylvania. Got more of my toe in the water. Now I've got 50-some drills and, you know, all kinds of people on it.
So you did everything you could to not get in the drilling business, and now you're in the drilling business. So what was the cause of that? What was the mindset originally of why you didn't want to be in it, and what was the shift in the business model, or what was the cause of that? Now you did decide you want to be in it, and you're now successful.
Right. The reason I didn't want to be in the business, very expensive, hard to get people to work on it, a very, very difficult manpower type to run, you know, and the drills were so expensive. You know, you had to lay out $1 million for a drill. When can you get the return on that? You know, what changed my mind is one of my major competitors went out and got drills, and these drilling companies who I described to you a second ago, they went out of business. They couldn't afford it. They'd buy a drill, try to keep it for 15 years. They just couldn't do it. So as they went out of business, my competitor came in and started drilling for him. But he had one rule. If I drill it, I shoot it.
Yep.
So when this came about and we got hurt a couple times, I said, well, we better get in the drilling business. So now we're in the drilling business. And if we drill it, we shoot it.
Right. So, and I bet the blasters are happy about that in the end.
Yeah, no, they are. Sure, they are. And it throws a different slant on things. I think what the customer has done has been consolidating the number of operations he has, consolidated all the synergies that he has for whatever, you know, the success of the quarries. He's starting to create a little bit of a monster now because of the distributor has to have that now. And what they've done is they reduced the number of competitors that are in the field. But you could get in the blasting business 50 years ago. If you had a nice truck, I mean, a box truck, throw some stuff on it, go around and shoot.
Yeah.
You can't do that today. The regulations alone will cost you to get started.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different ballgame. Some good things about it. I mean, you have technology has to always advance, and we've had some very, very from drones to how we measure shots out and everything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the technology and the level of credibility by having, that more centralized blasting program, and you don't have quite as many small operations, that means that there's a little bit more detail and oversight over reporting and planning, things like that. The communication between the drillers and the blasters is now more tight, so that you have a better, more uniform version of what's in the hole, what happened to that hole, so the blaster knows, instead of like you said, a cantankerous driller doesn't ever get out of the drill. To him, the pattern's drilled, and you don't know that there's all types of caverns in that hole the first time you shoot, and then after that, now every single time you can't trust anything that guy says. He just gives you final depth, and you pay him by the damn foot. So there is some benefits behind that. I definitely understand what you're saying there. Is when you decided that this was going to be a buyout, and I think that that's pretty admirable. You had no money, but you said, all right, well, let's find a way, and you worked your way, I guess, sweat equity into the ownership there.
Yes.
Was there any funny situations that happened to you during that process? Anything interesting that made you kind of scratch your head and say, well, was this a good decision or not?
Well, other than him telling me if I don't like my car, I can buy my own. Yeah, I think one of the things at the end was he became. We started to be successful, and most of it was because of my background and my ability to bring things up to the front. And he started to get cold feet and decided that maybe he didn't want to sell. Well, we had a pretty strong agreement, and I was very nervous to take the whole thing over, and I had to take a loan out from a bank that was much, much more than I could ever afford. And he said, I want to stay on and work. And I knew it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for me being in the boss and him working for me
At the same.
So he, I said no, and he left, and I never saw him again.
Wow. So okay, that relationship change of now you being the boss wasn't going to work well, for some reason that ruined the relationship, even though that was the agreed upon.
That's right. We went to the bank, had settlement, didn't talk to me. It was interesting. I went to the bank. I went to all the banks we did business with. Nobody gave me any money. So I went to a little farmer's bank outside of Lancaster. I was in there I don't know why I was in there. And I asked this girl, I said, who loans money out? She said, that guy right over there. So I went over and I said, listen, can I talk to you about borrowing some money? He says, yeah, we can split a sandwich together. Just one bank, little bank in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he sat there and he said, what kind of money do you have to put in it? I said, I think I have $3,000 equity in my house and I have a car. And he goes, you going to throw it in? I said, I'll throw it in. He goes, all right, I'll throw in the rest. And he took a flyer on me. He took a chance on me. And he was very interesting. He watched me like a hawk. I mean, not so much that I wasn't going to pay, but he became enthusiastic about it. And,
a silent cheerleader in the background.
Yeah, right. He was pretty cool. And I paid him back in 3 years. I mean, it was great. And but you need some luck. I mean, if I hadn't run into that guy, I'm not so sure what I would have done. I don't know how I would have done it. I didn't know people like you then that could loan me that kind of money. So there was some luck in that. There's no question about it. And we started with 7 guys, and 2 of them tried to backdoor me and sign up for another manufacturer. So I went down to 5. and
you still have 2. You still have 2 of those guys now.
I have 2 of them left. Yeah. So that was kind of funny. Yeah.
And okay, now here's another question here. I think it's interesting, because like you said, the business model has changed, and now there's only really 4 major suppliers. And from what it used to be to what it is now, how have you kind of coped with that? you know, how has it been some unique lessons when it comes to how that has either been a benefit or a detriment to business for you?
I think it's been always a benefit. When I first started doing it, and we became um, a hodgepodge of buying many different products from different people. When we first started in the business, it, the customer bought DuPont. That's who he bought. Or he bought Atlas. That's who he bought. Or he bought Hercules. That's who he bought. I'll tell you now, I'll bet you 90% of my customers don't even know what product I put in the ground. They have no clue. They don't know who made it. And that was a transformation of that time when I finally said to my people, I said, it doesn't matter what product we buy. Nobody cares what product we buy. They want price, and they want a good shot and a timely shot and people they can trust. All the things that go into making a good businessman. And we did that. Then as it started to get on a little bit further, I thought maybe we needed to align ourselves with a major supplier. And the Hercules distributor up in the Allentown area had some difficulties, and they took his permit from him. And the Dyno Nobel at the time came to me and asked me if I would take over that distributorship if they gave me a protected area, franchise type of area, if you will.
Hmm.
I said I would. I thought it was important then, but I made the agreement so that I had a certain amount of percentage I could buy from other people, because there were some people out there that I really thought were very good suppliers, didn't need to have all my business, but there were certain parts of it they deserved to have. And Dyno went through a big transformation. They got bought out by the Australians, as did Atlas, which was Orica now, which was Teller. And so then a guy who I thought the world of, but I thought was a terrific guy, manufacturer, was a guy named Dave True, who ran Austin. And he was a real gentleman, a real good guy. And so I made a agreement with him. I'd buy out his Eastern Pennsylvania operation if he gave me a protected area. And we could have just shooken hands and just gone from there. We have an agreement, but there was never any problem. And we're still honoring that agreement. Now, we go up into New England now, we go up to New York. It's out of that protected area, but we're still very solid with Austin and the Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey area. So those are the kind of things that I think you had to keep your eye on. I think most of the explosive distributors that I know, most of them went into joint ventures, whereas the manufacturer they sold half of their business to the manufacturer. Mm-hmm. That's been offered to me many times. I personally never saw the advantage of it. I personally didn't. But I think most of my competitors, people are joint ventures. So
When you were making the shifts from each company or each supplier, was there were they stemmed from like an event, like a misfire or an incident that caused them, or it was strictly you saw that there was an opportunity, like that person from Hercules who was losing part of their business, and that then you were able to see that and seize that moment, and say yes to that opportunity? Is that more how those situations played out for you?
yes. I try to take advantage of all those situations to the best of my ability, and all the time making sure that I didn't or wasn't disrespectful to the people who did buy, that I had been buying from. I mean, I don't think anybody felt that I was going to buy all their product from them, but I think we had good relationships, and they had transformations. People got promoted, people died, people retired, people transferred. The distributor, for the most part, stayed where he was, and he was what he was.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. And so I think that when I transferred my business mostly from Dyno over to Austin, the Dyno people had gone through a great change. The Australians started to come over they would be the presidents. They would have their philosophies, which are fine. They're good. I have no problem with them. They believe strongly in joint ventures. And so they had other goals, let's say, that changed with our relationship, just as I had different goals. But, by the time I started with 7 people, or 5 or 6, 7 people, and then I'm up to 150. You got to look out for all the things that people you have working for you. And We wanted to increase from the inside out, so we had the opportunity with Austin to pick up New Jersey, and they've helped us a lot going into New England.
And when it came to sorry, I had my question here and I just forgot it. As a person who's switching and reducing that pressure of becoming a joint venture, was there certain situations, and I think it probably answered my own question here, but it seems like you told the example of how the previous owner, if you didn't come in with the right price, you didn't get the business, but you saw that other salesmen put in a lot of work and deserve a small section of your business. And it looks like that you're the kind of person who sees that if someone's putting in good effort, they like to be that effort should somehow be rewarded, even if it's a small portion of that business and that business is going well. Is that kind of one of the reasons why you didn't want to be a joint venture and you wanted to maintain this relationship with your other suppliers? Was that kind of the reason, or was there something else?
No, I don't think that was the reason. I didn't want to go into joint venture because I didn't think that the offer they were making was fair. I think that their offer was such that if you needed money at the time, and I'm certainly not evaluating anybody else. I don't mean it that way.
Right.
I'm concerned. There are other people had different needs and different goals and different ideas, and they did it for good reasons. And
it's clearly working for others.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Dave Childs, who's a great guy from, you might know, down in Oklahoma and Tennessee and Kentucky, I guess. I think he went into a joint venture, but I think he's out of it now. Jerry Davis, Wampum, they went into joint ventures. It works very well for them, so forth and so on. I felt that the number that they wanted was not what I felt that I could make on my own without it. I mean, I like to think anyway that you can look a little bit ahead and say, I got problems. I'm going to have a problem here if I don't straighten some stuff out. Mm-hmm. And then I think you might be more attractive to some sort of joint venture, perhaps. I'm not talking about other people, I'm talking about me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that it was necessary. I felt that I wanted, and plus I'm not so sure I wanted a partner. I'm not a partner kind of guy. And those are other reasons. It wasn't, I try to treat all my suppliers fairly, I think most of them that I've done business with, I'd like to think anyway, that they felt they were treated fairly. So
now, when you come to, kind of where you are today, where do you see, you said you're happy with what your suppliers and your contracts that you have today and where you get your materials from. But where do you see kind of the business going in the future? Is there something that you are looking forward towards in the future when it comes to this, or is there something you're kind of hesitant about in the future when it comes to how relationships in the industry are going?
Well, I think you have to be quick on your feet with how the business moves. Like I said, I resisted drills forever. Now I'm in drills. I accept it. We do okay. I'm happy with it. That's fine. I think we need more geography. I think we need more customer base, because it's the cost we have to put into this stuff, into mechanized trucks, drills, people. My costs for people have gone up out of sight, and deservedly so. They were underpaid for years. Now I think they're at least, I think, pretty nicely paid, and good for them. But I think we can't stand still geographically. And I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago. I think 20 years ago I'd have said, we're fine. That's not a problem. We don't have to expand. But like I said, you get back to that basic premise. You have fewer and fewer customers owning more and more quarries. It becomes, you're holding your breath when you bid somebody who has 25 quarries. I mean, it's
it can make or break you.
Oh yeah, it's so I think we have to be ready to move, expand. Like I said, I like to expand from the inside out. So we're expanding up into the New England area. Perhaps the next thing I'd want to expand would be west or south, probably more likely south. We haven't gotten that base now. It's people too. I mean, it's so hard to hire good people. It used to be you could hire people from the manufacturer at will. You'd see a guy working for a manufacturer. I think I want to hire that guy. You go over and have a talk with him. You hire him. Well, manufacturers don't have anybody anymore. They don't shoot anymore. I mean, Austin does to some degree, but for the most part, they don't shoot. They use distributors, ergo joint ventures. So, these kind of people that are blasters and stuff like that, they're tough to find. I mean, it's very, very difficult. So I think with that in mind, we have to make sure we take care of our people. But I have now 4 people who run my companies. None of them are over 40 years old. When I die and I leave this, there'll be 4 guys. If it was tomorrow, all 4 of them would be under 40 years old. Right? Ambitious, aggressive, want to succeed. They want to win. Do they want to make money? Yes, no question about it. But I think it's the competition. It's the fight to win that I've tried to get with these people. That's what they got to be thinking about. How do you going to succeed? How are you going to win? And great guys. I never thought I'd have that situation.
That's a great team to have, and if you're treating them well, and obviously you got some people there 52 years and whatnot.
Sure.
How would you say you maintain those kind of employees? What is it? What do you have to do to keep someone for 52 years?
You have to sort of stay on you have to be prepared. I mean, you have to be aware of what's happening. I think that's the biggest problem we have in this business, or any businessman. If they're not ready to move, or to not so much take advantage, but see what the signs are, what's happening. I mean, 10 years ago, I'm paying a truck driver $14-16 an hour. I mean, I hate to say anything that I'm off. I don't do it so much anymore, but 14, 16, 18, I pay about $32 an hour, $30 an hour. You got truck drivers making over $100,000 a year. I mean, which is fine. That's good. I'm happy for them. But you got to see that coming, because if you don't see it coming, guess what? They're going to be working with somebody else. And it's tough to get good truck drivers who are CBL qualified and know the explosive business. And it's the same with the blasters. I might have been paying blasters 20 years ago, 10 years ago, X. Now they're making much more. And we, as owners, were able to take advantage of it 20 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Today, it's their turn to make money. And you have to sort of be on top of that. They're not looking, all of them aren't looking for a lot of money, but what they're looking for is job satisfaction. They want money, no question about it. They want time off. They want to be able to enjoy the summer, which when I started in the business, you never were allowed to take off summers. You couldn't do that. So, and just have to have an awareness. I think it's an awareness. You see somebody that's a problem, and you say, what is it that's concerning you? Well, I don't think I'm being treated fairly because of X. So you have to address it. 50 years ago, you don't think you're being treated well? Go find another job.
Yeah, get lost. Yeah.
That's where I think being aware of that stuff has become so important. And you have to sort of like put yourself in their shoes, because if they're going to do a good job for you, they got to be happy. You can't come to work every day hating your job, and it's too hard of a job. I mean, you can't be in this job if you don't love it. You just can't.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I see. I think that it's just an awareness type of thing. The people that you're dealing with, they be treated. You have to treat them with a lot of respect now. Not that you didn't before, but it wasn't sort of mandated before. It was sort of like, punch the clock, you're done. Now it's like, hey, how's it going? I mean, you're a better person, really. I think. So.
Is there, over all these years and these employees you've had, are there any situations where you felt that maybe you could have done something differently, or you reacted to a certain situation that you look back and say, like, oh man, I should have done it differently, or or part 2, one where you were like, okay, it made you proud on how you handled the situation?
I think the former is probably the better thing. There are many things that I thought I should have done differently. I really do. My evaluation of someone sometimes could have been better. I could have taken more time to evaluate how I could have made this guy a better employee. I will say that we've lost very, very few employees, and just how I treat people, perhaps could have done a better job. Like, we could have avoided a problem, because when you lose a key man, but I've been fortunate. I haven't lost key people. I think that's something that, because I was aware of what was going on for the most part, I think we didn't have that happen. Yeah, I think in the latter part of your question, I think I'm proud of the way I treated some of these people. I mean, the guys that work for me have worked for Maurer Scott 52 and 53 years, 53 and 54, I guess it is now. They have different needs now, and you try to accommodate them. One guy has his family down in his kids that have grandchildren down in the Carolinas and then that area. Well, he doesn't want to work in January and February. He wants to go down there and visit with his grandchildren and go to their activities and stuff like that. And we're more than happy to do that. He deserves it. He's been with us 50 years.
Right.
And the other man's the same way. So you say, yeah, okay. This is what I think you deserve, and I'm proud of our relationship, and we can do that. And I'm glad we can do it. And that's part of the cost. I tell these guys, have you ever got paid when you didn't work? And they sort of look at you, and have you worked and never got paid? No. So who wins a little bit? I don't know.
Right.
Who wins? So
yeah,
ask questions. They'll give you a look, and they'll go, have I ever not worked and got paid? Well, maybe. Okay. But you've never worked and not get paid.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Is that has that led to some kind of funny situations that you can recall? Any funny memories on from some previous employees or yourself, to where it kind of, you look back and you're like, well, damn, that was an odd situation?
Yeah, I had a guy one time. I was sitting at my desk going through some gas receipts, starting out, looking at everything. Gallon gas is $2 a gallon, right? Guy gets 15 gallons, right? $2 a gallon, 15 gallons, $34. Can't be $34. So I go to the gas station guy. I say, 15 gallons, $2 a gallon, $34. He goes, well, that's your guy that works for you. He gets a Twinkie and a Coke in here. I said, a Twinkie and a Coke. I said, and you put that towards the fuel? He goes, yeah. I said, well, do you think that's right? He goes, no. I said, well, what would you do it for? He says, I figured you wouldn't care. I said, well, I guess you thought wrong, because there's nobody allowed to come into this place to ever get gas again as long as I own the trucks. So I go to the guy who did it. And I said, all right, 15 gallons, $2 a gallon, $34. What'd you do here? He goes, I don't know why he did that. He said, the gas must have been $2.25. I said, no.
Here's your Twinkie.
The Twinkie. So everybody, I've told this story. This story happened 40 years ago. Everybody that works for me now, they always get kicked out of telling the Twinkie story. Guy still works for me. He's a great employee. He just tried to milk the system a little bit. But you're going to have that happen. The guys are, I don't want people cheating or lying or all that kind of stuff, no more than anybody else. But sometimes guys, especially if they work hard to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, load their own truck, go out there and load all day and get home at 6 o'clock at night. Well, can I buy them a Coke and a Twinkie? Yeah, okay. So that's what everybody says now. Are you buying anybody any Twinkies? So that part comes.
That's the next shirt that you're gonna have at the conference.
Yeah, right.
Little Twinkie pins where everyone else has the lapel. You're gonna have little Twinkie pins.
Right.
That's funny.
That's right. So that was one of the funniest. It's human nature. Just you gotta find the people to get along with a lot of people, and I've got to be aware that things go bad and guys have bad days, good days, as long as they're trying, and they're good employees. We try very hard not to hire good people, regardless of what they do.
Yeah.
The good drivers, good blasters, good accountants, good secretaries, good mechanics, all that. Just good people. So we try.
Is there something, when you say you try to hire good people, is there like something you first look for as a sign after all these years and always, and all the interviews and all the people you work with, is there something that you look for um, as a business owner first, since we've really, gotten a lot of lesson here? Is there something you've kind of, as a green flag, let's say, there's lots of red flags, but are there certain green flags that really um, you see, is it, you understand what I'm asking here?
Yeah, sure. And I think most of the time it's instinctively. I've been fortunate to have good instincts. Say that with not any reason that to personal, other than when I deal with people, I have an opinion, which is probably a mistake to some degree, but for the most part, instinctively, after I talk to somebody for 10 minutes, watch their body language, watch the way they handled themselves, watch the way that they looked around or whatever they did. It's good instincts. Have I made mistakes? Oh, of course. I thought, man, I really thought this guy was going to work. I really thought this was a good person that we would really like. And it didn't fit. It was a square peg in a round hole, and we moved on. But for the most part, and I tell them all the same thing. Give us a year. Give me 1 year. At the end of 1 year, if you don't like the explosive business, then you don't want to be in the explosive business, because you've got to love the explosive business after 1 year. You got to. And that's true. I mean, you had, what'd you have on the other day that we said we watched, Young, Tom Young. And, he loves the explosive business. I mean, you can tell it. I mean, he had a different background. He worked for 4 or 5 employees, ended up with where he did, which did a great job. And he's a great guy. And, but he'll say the same thing. You're not, if you don't love this business, you're not in it. That's why it's kind of nice, because when you go to a convention or something, everybody loves it. It wouldn't be an explosive business if you don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, who can be in this business if you don't like it?
100%.
Yeah.
So do you have any parting words for us, Larry? Do you have any advice you might want to give to fellow business owners, or maybe some of the younger listeners here? Something to go towards the future of what you think that we should focus forward. This is an opportunity for you to speak and share to a fairly large audience here.
Well, I wished I could say something that would really be outstanding and could make an impression on somebody. I'm not so sure that I can. I don't think, as much as I love the business, and I think the people in the explosive business are the greatest group of guys I ever met in my life, but I don't think that I can tell you who that person is by saying, if you're like this, you'll be an explosive person. And I know that's not what you mean, but that's what it comes out to. No, I really can't get anybody. If you're a decent person and you're a good person and you don't mind working hard, all those kind of things that and everybody in your audience knows, if you can do that, then you'll do well. You'll do well in the explosive business. And I think that's how I would answer that. I really don't have any special one that I would say that you could be successful in. You just have to work hard and get a little lucky, I think, sometimes.
Wonderful. And are there any questions that I haven't asked that I should have asked that you can think of?
Well, that's a good question. I know when I hire somebody from a competitor, I'll say to that guy, and within the first month, I'll say to him, I'll track him down. I'll go look at him. And I'll say, is there anything that the company you came for did better than us, does better than we do? And then I'll say to him, is there anything that we do that's better than them? And then most of the time they have an answer. They'll say, yeah, I think, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Could I ask any questions of me? I think I've been very fortunate. I think I've been lucky. I made some good decisions in the beginning, and I can't imagine ever doing anything else in my life. Yeah.
Well, Larry, I really appreciate this, your time, and you coming out here and talking to me about this. And it's been a nice, unique interview when it comes to your perspective on supplier and at that relationship. It's been quite interesting. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks for taking the time to sort of bring the explosive family in together and talk to people who've been around for a long time. I don't know how much longer I'm going to last, but I'm still going to go at it.
Oh, keep kicking, man. You got it.
All right.
Don't look like you're slowing down to me. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, you have a good one, Larry, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blast Report podcast. I want to thank the team at Blast Think for producing this show, and please follow along for more episodes in the future, and share this podcast with your colleagues so we can continue to honor our industry and the people in it. Be safe and have a blast.